The transmission died at 3:47 Earth. Coordinated time. Captain Aris Thorne watched the holographic display flicker, her command staff frozen around the circular table. The face of Governor Mendez from Titan. Colony had been mid-sentence, something about ammunition shortages, about children learning to fire rail guns before they learned algebra when the image dissolved into static, then nothing. Silence filled the bunker. 20 m of reinforced rock separated them from the surface, but Thorne felt the weight of the sky pressing down, above her head through the labyrinth of tunnels and blast doors. The night sky had changed. The familiar constellations remained, but between them, where ships once jumped between relay points, there was only darkness. The network's gone, Commander Victus spoke without looking up from his console. His mandibles clicked once. Xylar gesture of finality that he'd picked up during the war, now as natural to him as breathing, not damaged, not compromised. Gone. Dominion fleet positioned at all 6 relay nexus. Simultaneously, they severed every line connecting this system to the galaxy. Thorne's fingers pressed against the cold steel of the table. Confirm all colonies. Confirmed. Mars, Titan, Europa, the belt stations, all outer settlements. Victus's human augmented voice cracked. We're alone. The map of human space flickered on the main display. 24 blue points representing colonies, stations, and outposts. One by one they winked out. Not destroyed. The Dominion wanted them alive, wanted them to feel the isolation before the surrender. Just silenced, cut off from Earth, cut off from each other. 12 billion humans on Earth, another 3 billion scattered across the solar system, all of them blind and deaf, waiting for a command that would never come. Thorne had known this moment was possible. The Xylar Dominion had spent 70 years expanding through the Orion arm, absorbing or crushing every species that resisted. Humanity had been the exception, too aggressive, too unpredictable, too stubborn. For 3 decades, Earth had played diplomatic games, built alliances, stockpiled weapons, and for 3 decades the Dominion had watched, learned, and waited. They'll send terms within the hour. Thorne turned from the display. What do we have? Lieutenant Haruki activated a secondary screen. Numbers appeared. Ships 43. Operational, 17 of those battle-ready. Troops enough for defensive actions. Only resources, 6 months at current consumption, less if the orbital farms went dark. And they would go dark without relay access. Supply ships couldn't reach the agricultural stations without supplies. The stations would fail without the stations. Earth starved. There's another option. Victus's voice dropped. The room's temperature seemed to fall with it. Thorne met his gaze. She knew what he meant. Everyone in this room knew. There was a reason the Dominion had blockaded Earth instead of invading. Reason they'd chosen to cut the relays rather than engage in direct combat. And reason their fleets maintained a careful distance from lunar orbit. Zeus. The name passed between the command staff in whispers, encoded messages, the spaces between spoken words. Officially, it didn't exist. The project had been buried under 17 layers of classification, then declared a waste of resources, then quietly erased from every database. But Thorne had been there. She'd seen what Zeus could do. We're not ready, she said it as much to convince herself as the others. They. Last calculation showed a 17% failure rate, 17% chance of destroying everything. We're out of time, Victus stepped closer. The Dominion knows about Zeus. That's why they're keeping distance. That's why they severed the relays. Instead of attacking directly, they're afraid. Fear isn't strategy. No, Victus' human eyes a transplant. From a donor, one of the first successful cross-species operations. Held hers, but desperation is in. We're out of everything else. The bunker's alarm screamed, red light. Flooded the chamber, Haruki's fingers flew across his console, his face draining of color. Incoming transmission, Dominion. Frequency audio only. Thorn nodded once. The voice that filled the room was synthetic, translated through Dominion. Standard into accented English. Attention, human leadership, your isolation is complete, your colonies are silenced, your fleet is contained, you will surrender all military assets and submit to Dominion governance within 12 standard cycles. For each cycle you delay, one orbital habitat will be deorbited onto your planetary surface. The choice is yours. The transmission ended. Haruki pulled up the orbital tracking display. 37 habitats, stations, and platforms. Circled Earth, 37 potential weapons aimed at the planet's surface. Thorn looked at the numbers again. 43. Ship's 6 month of resources, 17%. Chance of survival. She thought about Governor Mendez's frozen face, about the children learning to fire rail guns, about the 3 billion humans scattered across the darkness, waiting for a sign that Earth hadn't abandoned them. Send the activation order, she said. Code Zeus, authorization Thorn Ares. Captain, Earth Defense Command. Victus's hand hesitated over the console. If we do this, I know. Thorn turned back to the dead display. To the ghosts of human colonies that no longer answered. 17% chance we survive. 83% chance we all die on our feet instead of our knees. She watched the command transmit. Watched the encrypted signal race through hardened cables toward the Siberian facility. Watched the countdown timer appear on the main display. 12 hours until the first habitat fell. She had no idea if Zeus would save them or destroy them, but she knew with absolute certainty that the Dominion had just made the worst mistake in galactic history. They severed Earth from the stars. Now they would learn what grew in the dark. 6 months changed everything. Ares Thorn walked the perimeter of the Siberian facility, her boots crunching against permafrost that had not thawed in 10,000 years. Above her the sky remained starless, not from clouds but from the Dominion jamming array that had settled into polar orbit 3 weeks after the severing. No light escaped Earth, no light entered. The facility had been a radar station during the old wars, then a research outpost, then a tomb for secrets. Now it hummed with activity. Engineers in thermal suits moved between modular buildings, their breath fogging in the -40 degrees air. Conduits snaked across the ice like veins carrying power from geothermal vents deep below. Zeus was waking up. How bad? Thorn asked as Victus fell into step beside her. He handed her a tablet. Numbers always. Numbers now. Food production down 40%. The orbital farms are gone. Dominion deorbited the last one 3 days ago. We're running on hydroponics and rationing. Another month, we start eating the seed stock. And the population. Restless, the broadcast stopped last week. People know something's happening. They just don't know what. Thorne stopped at the facility's main entrance, a blast door 3 m thick, painted with faded warning symbols. Behind it, buried 2 km beneath the ice, waited the reason the Dominion hadn't simply bombed Earth from orbit. Zeus wasn't a weapon, not in the way the galaxy understood weapons. It didn't fire projectiles or direct energy or deploy warheads. Zeus manipulated gravity, not as a field but as a medium. The device could convert planetary mass into directed gravitational waves, turning Earth itself into a cannon. The theory had been simple. The engineering had been a nightmare. 200 scientists had died during the first test phase when a containment failure collapsed a 5 km section of the Siberian plateau into a crater. The project had been buried, the survivors silenced, the data locked away. But the math had worked. The math had always worked. The council wants to see you, Victus said. They're debating surrender. Again. Thorne didn't move. Let them debate. They'll vote by tonight. You know what the outcome will be. She did. The fractured council, what remained of Earth's government after the severing had been split for months. The isolationists wanted to wait, to endure, to hope the Dominion would grow bored. The collaborators wanted to negotiate terms. The military faction, Thorne's faction, wanted to fight. But without Zeus, there was no fight. Only surrender or starvation. How many ships do we have left? Victus' expression darkened. 28, we lost. The Shinju last week, crew mutinied and tried to reach the relay debris. Dominion destroyers caught them in the asteroid belt. The Thorne closed her eyes. The Shinju had been her first command. She'd christened it herself, watched it launch from Mars orbital, felt pride in a way she had known she could feel. Now it was debris. Its crew was dead. Its captain had made a choice. Desperate, foolish choice, and paid for it. She couldn't afford to judge. Desperation had a way of making fools of everyone. The activation sequence, she said. Status. Victus pulled up a schematic on his wrist display. Layers of tunnels, containment chambers, power conduits, and at the center, a sphere the size of a stadium, the gravitational anchor, the heart of Zeus. Final calibration is complete. The containment field is stable at 93%. Power reserves are at maximum. We're ready for a test fire. A test fire, Thorne tasted the words. And if it fails, then we don't have to worry about surrender or food or anything else. She looked up at the starless sky. Somewhere out there, beyond the jamming array, beyond the blockade, beyond the severed relay network, 3 billion humans waited in silence. They didn't know about Zeus. They didn't know about the council's debates or the food shortages or the 28 ships that remained. They only knew that Earth had gone dark, that no messages came, that the stars had disappeared one by one until nothing remained but the darkness. Open a channel to the council, Thorne said. I'll address them personally. Victus hesitated. They won't listen. They'll listen. She turned toward the facility entrance. Because I'm going to tell them the truth, all of it, the weapon, the risks, the 17% chance of survival, and then I'm going to ask them a question. What question? Thorne paused at the blast door. Her Hand rested on the cold metal. Behind her, the wind howled across the ice. Ahead, 2 km down, a sleeping giant waited to wake. I'm going to ask them if they'd rather die as humans or live as something else. The blast door opened. Warm air rushed out, carrying the smell of ozone and machinery. Thorn stepped inside. Behind her, the sky remained dark, but deep beneath her feet, something stirred. The gravitational anchor pulsed with energy, responding to her presence, as if it knew Zeus was waiting. And so was the Dominion. The council chamber occupied the facility's 7th sublevel, carved from bedrock and reinforced with enough alloy to survive a direct nuclear strike. 47 representatives sat in a semicircle around a central podium. Their faces reflected months of deprivation, hollow cheeks, bruised eyes, the slack expressions of people who had stopped hopping. Thorn stood at the podium. She had refused the offered chair. This wasn't a conversation between equals. This was a command. You've seen the projection, she began. 6 months of isolation, 28 ships. Remaining food for 8 weeks. Dominion's terms are unchanged. Unconditional surrender, military disarmament, population relocation to designated habitation zones. A representative from the African Federation raised his hand. And your alternative, a weapon we buried 20 years ago because it nearly destroyed this planet. My alternative is survival. Thorn activated the main display. Holographic model of Earth appeared, showing the gravitational anchors positioned beneath Siberia. Zeus isn't a bomb, it's a converter. It transforms planetary mass into directed gravitational force. The energy required to move a continent focused into a beam the width of a ship. You're talking about tearing the planet apart. No, I'm talking about using it as a weapon. She zoomed the display to show the Dominion fleet positions, 300 ships, arranged in a spherical formation around Earth, too many for conventional engagement, exactly the right number for gravitational targeting. The fleet maintains a distance of 200,000 km. They think they're safe. They're wrong. The test fire will occur in 6 hours. Thorn's voice left no room for debate. Target a single Dominion cruiser designated as a threat asset. If successful, the cruiser will be destroyed. If unsuccessful, we lose the planet. The same representative leaned forward. Captain, I respect your service, but you're asking us to bet everything on a 17% chance. I'm asking you to bet on the only chance we have. She looked around the chamber, meeting each pair of eyes in turn. Surrender means relocation to Dominion habitation zones. Do you know what that means? It means our children grow up in processing centers. It means our culture gets absorbed, then erased, then forgot. It means humanity becomes a footnote in somebody else's history. She paused. I won't accept that. I can't, and neither can you. The silence stretched, then slowly representatives began to nod, one by one. 47 humans making a choice that would echo through eternity. Authorization granted, the council chair said. Activate Zeus. 6 hours later, Thorn stood in the primary control room, 2 km beneath the ice. The gravitational anchor filled the viewport, a sphere of interlocking rings, each one spinning at a different velocity, each one generating a gravitational field that warped the Around it, the rings glowed with heat. That should have melted the facility. But the containment field held, bending. The energy back on itself in an endless loop. Status, Thorne said. Commander Victus stood at the primary console, his hands trembled slightly. The only sign of fear he allowed. Himself, anchor is stable, power. Reserves at 98%. Targeting solution, locked on Dominion. Cruiser vengeful, firing in 90 seconds. Casualty projections. Low, the gravitational wave will pass through empty space before impact. No atmospheric interaction, no debris. Field, just a ship compressed into a sphere the size of a baseball. Thorne watched the countdown, 60 seconds, 40, 20. All stations confirm final readiness. One by one, the reports came in. Containment stable, power stable. Targeting locked, the engineers had done their work, the scientists had done theirs, now it was up to physics. Fire. The control room shuddered. Through the viewport, Thorne saw the anchor's rings accelerate, their glow intensified until she had to look away. The air grew heavy, every atom in the room suddenly weighed twice as much. Her bones ached, her blood felt thick in her veins. And then silence. The ring stopped spinning, the glow faded, the weight lifted. Impact in 3 seconds, Victor said, 2-1. The main display showed the vengeful Dominion cruiser 1200M, long armed with enough firepower to level a continent. The ship folded. Not exploded, not shattered, folded, its hull crumpled inward as if gripped by an invisible fist, metal compressed. Atmosphere ignited, fusion reactors detonated inside their own containment. In less than a second, the vengeful became a sphere of superheated debris, no larger than a child's toy. The Dominion fleet went silent. Thorne watched the display, waiting for the response, for the counterattack, for the fury. Nothing came. They're confused, Victor said. They don't know what happened. Their sensors can't track gravitational waves as far as they can tell. The vengeful just disappeared. Give them time. Thorne turned from the display. Reload the anchor. Prepare for sustained fire. Captain, the strain on the containment field. I said prepare for sustained fire. Vexter nodded, his hand stopped trembling. Whatever fear he'd felt, it had been replaced by something else. Something colder. The Dominion had severed Earth from the stars. Now they would learn what it meant to wake a sleeping giant. High Command Station, inevitable, orbited the gas giant Xylos Prime, a fortress the size of a small moon. Admiral Vexter commanded the Dominion's Orion armed forces from its central spire, surrounded by holographic displays showing 300 sectors, 12 subject species, and one persistent problem. Earth. Report, he said, his translator implant converting his native clicks into standard. Subcommander Thrax approached, carrying a data slate. The vengeful is confirmed. Destroyed, no survivors. No debris. Consistent with known weapon types. Vexker's mandibles twitched. Show me the recording. Thrax activated the main display. The vengeful appeared in high resolution. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then the ship's hull began to warp, not from external force, but from internal pressure, as if the laws of physics had changed. For that single vessel. Gravitational manipulation, Thrax said. Impossible scale, the energy required to collapse a ship of that mass would power A small star for a century, the humans should not have this technology. Vexker watched the recording again. And again, each time the same result. Ship folded into nothing, no warning, no countermeasure, no defense. What about the other vessels? 12 more lost in the following hour. The weapon fires from the planetary surface. We cannot track the trajectory, we cannot predict the target, we can only watch our ships disappear. The Admiral turned from the display, his carapace reflected the stations. Artificial light green like all Xyler military commanders, but something else reflected there too, something he had not felt in 30 cycles of conquest. Fear. The science division's analysis. Thrax hesitated. They believe the humans have converted their entire planet into a weapon, the gravitational anchor, the device we detected during the initial survey. It doesn't generate its own power, it channels the planet's mass. Every mountain, every ocean, every kilometer of crust becomes ammunition. Then destroy the planet. We cannot. The weapon engages before any ship enters effective range. We would lose hundreds of vessels before reaching firing position. Vexker's mandibles clicked in frustration. The gesture was ancient. Older than the Dominion, older than Xyler civilization. It meant impossible situation. What do they want? The humans haven't communicated since the severing. We believe they are preparing a counteroffensive against 300 ships with what fleet? Thrax pulled up another display, human ship movements, 28 vessels scattered across the solar system, too few for a conventional assault, but conventional rules no longer applied. The humans are unpredictable, Thrax said. That has always been their advantage. They don't think like subject species, they don't accept defeat. They keep fighting long after logic demands surrender. Vexker studied the display. The human ships were moving not toward the Dominion fleet, but toward the relay debris, toward the severed connection points that had once linked Earth to the galaxy. What are they doing? We don't know, but we have intercepted fragments of their communications. One word appears repeatedly. What word? Thrax's translator paused as if reluctant to speak. Zeus. 3 light hours from Xylo's prime. Another meeting took place. Captain Thorne stood on the bridge of the Odyssey, the last remaining dreadnought in Earth's fleet. Around her, officers worked at their stations, their faces illuminated by displays showing the debris field that had once been the Sol relay. Status on the retrieval operation, she asked. Lieutenant Haruki looked up from his console. We've recovered 17 fragments, large enough to analyze. The Dominion destroyed the relay completely. No chance of reconstruction without off-world manufacturing. I don't want to reconstruct it. Thorne walked to the main display. I want to understand it. The relay network was the Dominion's greatest achievement, a series of artificial wormhole generators that allowed instant travel between star systems, but the network had a weakness. Each relay required a control node, and each control node required synchronization with the others. Disrupt that synchronization, and the entire network failed. The Dominion had severed Earth from the network by destroying the local relay. But Thorne didn't want to reconnect. She wanted to burn the network down. Zeus fired 12 shots, Victor said, joining her at the display. Each shot destroyed a Dominion vessel, but the Containment field is showing strain. The planet can't sustain this for long. How long? Another 20 shots, maybe 30. Then the tectonic stress becomes irreversible. 20 shots, 30 Dominion ships against 300. We don't need to destroy them all. Thorne said, we just need to make them leave. She activated a schematic of the relay network, thousands of nodes spread across the Orion arm, all connected through a central hub in Xylo's space. The hub was heavily defended, impossible to reach, but the nodes themselves were vulnerable. Haruki, what happens if we fire Zeus at a relay node instead of a ship? The lieutenant's fingers flew across his console. Calculations appeared. His face went pale. Gravitational interference would propagate through the network, not just the target node, every connected node. The feedback would overwhelm the control systems. Would it destroy them? Worse, it would desynchronize them. Relays wouldn't explode, they just wouldn't work. Ships couldn't transit. Communications couldn't pass. The Dominion's entire network would become a collection of disconnected islands. Thorne nodded. And how would the Dominion respond to that? Haruki looked at the display, at the 300 ships surrounding Earth, at the 37 habitats waiting to be deorbited, at the 3 billion humans scattered across the darkness. They would panic, he said, because without the relays, they're just like us, alone, blind, afraid. Then that's our target. Thorne turned to Victus. How many shots to destabilize the network? 1, but the energy requirement is massive. We'd have to divert everything from containment to the firing mechanism. The tectonic strain would be catastrophic. How catastrophic? Victus pulled up a geological map of Earth. Fault lines glowed red, volcanic zones pulsed orange. We'd lose millions, maybe tens of millions. Earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, tsunamis. The planet would survive, but civilization might not. Thorne looked at the map, at the red lines spreading across continents, at the orange pulses marking places where magma waited to escape. She thought about the children learning to fire railguns, about Governor Mendez's frozen face, about the 17% chance that had brought them this far. Tell the council we're changing the plan, she said. We're not fighting for survival anymore. What are we fighting for? Thorne looked up at the display, at the severed relay, at the darkness between stars. We're fighting to make sure the Dominion never does this to anyone ever again. The Odyssey drifted through the asteroid belt, its running lights extinguished, its engines cold. Thorne stood on the observation deck, watching the rocks tumble past. Somewhere out there, the Shenzhou had died, her first command, her first failure. We've lost contact with the Jovian colonies, Victus said, entering the deck. Dominion patrols are sweeping the outer system. They know we're planning something. Let them sweep. Thorne didn't turn from the viewport. How many ships remain? 22. We lost the Einstein and the Nightingale during the last engagement. The Dominion is getting better at predicting our movements. Then we stop moving predictably. She turned. Activate the quantum entanglement network. Victus' eyes widened. That technology isn't ready. The Dominion said it was impossible without relays. The Dominion said a lot of things. Thorne walked past him. Follow me. The quantum entanglement chamber occupied the Odyssey's central section. a sphere of polished metal surrounded by cooling systems and power conduits. Dr. Alara Vasquez, the project's lead physicist, waited at the entrance, her expression unreadable. "Captain, you're certain about this?" "Certainty is a luxury we can't afford." Thorne stepped into the chamber. "Explain it to me again." Vasquez followed, activating a holographic display. Entanglement allows instantaneous communication regardless of distance, no relays, no transmission lag. The Dominion abandoned the technology because they couldn't stabilize the signal through interference, but they were trying to network hundreds of systems at once. And we're not. No, we're creating point-to-point connections, each colony, each ship. Each installation gets its own entangled partner. The signal is weak. We can only transmit text, not video or voice, but it's enough to coordinate. Thorne studied the display. Blue lines connected Earth to the scattered colonies, Mars, Titan, the belt, the outer settlements, all the points of light that had gone dark 6 months ago. They're still alive. Vasquez nodded. "We've been receiving automated signals for weeks. Dominion hasn't destroyed them. They want the populations for processing, but they've been waiting for us to surrender. The colonies won't wait. No, they've been building ships, training soldiers, stockpiling weapons. They knew we would come back." Thorne looked at the blue lines, at the connections being formed, at the network rising from the ashes of the Dominion, severing open a channel to all human forces. She said, "Send this message." She paused, gathering the words. "To every human listening, this is Captain Aris Thorne of the Earth Defense Command. 6 months ago, the Dominion severed our relays and left us for dead. They thought isolation would break us. They thought silence would make us surrender." She took a breath. "They were wrong. We are not broken. We are not silenced. We are awake, and we are coming. Send it." The Dominion's patrol fleet received the transmission 15 minutes later. Admiral Vexker read the words 3 times, each reading deepening confusion. "Impossible," Thrax said. "The humans cannot communicate without relays. We severed every connection." "They found another way," Vexker said. "Down the data slate. What about their ships?" The display updated. 22 human vessels scattered across the solar system, but now they were moving, not retreating. Not hiding, but accelerating toward the Dominion fleet. "All ships prepare for engagement," Vexker ordered. "They're committing to a direct assault." The human ships continued their approach. Their formation was unconventional, no recognizable battle pattern, no standard tactics. They flew in curves that should have been impossible, accelerating at rates that should have killed their crews. "Admiral, their acceleration is exceeding theoretical limits. The strain on their crews. Humans are resilient." Vexker watched the display. "They always have been." The first shots were exchanged at 200,000 km. Dominion beam weapons carved through the void, targeting the lead human vessels. But the humans anticipated each shot, shifting their trajectories milliseconds before impact. "They're predicting our targeting algorithms," Thrax said. "Impossible. We chained the sequences every engagement." "Not impossible." Vexker's mandibles clicked. "They're not predicting. They're reacting in real time." The human ships closed the distance. Railguns fired, sending kinetic Projectiles at fractions of light speed. Dominion shields absorbed the impacts. But the force was greater than expected. Each shot pushed ships off course. Disrupted formations created chaos. And through the chaos, the humans flew. They're not trying to win, Thrax realized. They're trying to buy time. Vexker accessed the long-range sensors. Found the gravitational anomaly. Found Zeus charging for another shot. But this shot wasn't aimed at ships. The targeting solution pointed at the relay network. All ships retreat to save distance. Vexker ordered, they're going to destroy the relays. Too late. Zeus fired. The gravitational wave struck the relay. Node at 0.3 light seconds. Thorn watched the display as energy rippled outward, not through space but through the fabric of the network itself. The node didn't collapse, it resonated, sending feedback cascading along every connected relay in the arm. One by one, the Dominion's control nodes went dark. Confirmed network desynchronization. Haruki reported 17 sectors affected. Dominion ships are losing navigation data. They can't coordinate fleet movements. Casualties. Victus's face was gray. The tectonic strain on Earth is worse than projected. We're getting reports from every continent. Earthquakes in the Pacific Rim, volcanic activity in Indonesia. Tsunamis hitting coastal cities. Numbers. We don't have numbers yet, but it's bad, Captain, really bad. Thorn turned from the display. She had known this would happen, known the cost. But knowing and seeing were different things. Damage to the anchor. The containment field is failing. We have maybe 2 more shots before the system collapses completely. 2 shots against the remaining Dominion forces, against the ship still surrounding Earth, still capable of deorbiting habitats, still capable of ending everything. Captain, incoming transmission from Earth. The Council is demanding an immediate ceasefire. Tell them. Another transmission, Dominion. Frequency audio only. Thorn nodded. Admiral Vexker's voice filled the bridge. Human commander, you have destroyed our network. You have killed thousands of our soldiers. You have proven yourselves more dangerous than any species we have encountered. A pause. We offer terms, withdrawal of all Dominion forces from the Sol system, release of human colonies, cessation of hostilities, and in exchange, you will deactivate your weapon. You will allow us to repair the relays. You will return to your planet and remain there. Thorn looked at Victus, at Haruki, at the officers watching her, waiting for her decision. If we accept, we're trapped, Victus said. The Dominion will rebuild. They'll find a way to counter Zeus. And next time they won't offer terms. If we refuse, Earth breaks apart. Thorn looked at the display, at the blue and green planet she had sworn to protect, at the seismic readings spreading across its surface like wounds. Open a channel to the Dominion. She waited for the connection. Admiral Vexker, your terms are rejected. Silence. You have 30 standard cycles to evacuate the Sol system. After that, Zeus will fire again, not at your ships, not at your relays, at your homeworld. You're bluffing. 17% of my planet is already gone. I have nothing left to lose. Can you say the same? The transmission ended. Thorn turned to Victus. How long until the containment field fails? 28 cycles, maybe less. Then we have 28 cycles to make them. Believe we'll do it. And if they don't believe? Thorne looked at the display at Earth. Wounded but unbroken at the colonies. Finally reconnected at the Dominion. Fleet beginning its retreat. Then we find out what happens when two species decide extinction is better than surrender. 20 cycles passed. The Dominion fleet withdrew to the edge of the solar system beyond Pluto's orbit, beyond the reach of Zeus's effective range, but they didn't leave. Admiral Vexker was too smart to retreat, completely too cautious to commit to another attack, and Thorne was running out of time. The containment field is down to 12%. Vasquez reported the anchor structural integrity is failing. We're seeing microfractures in the primary rings. Can we fire again? Once, maybe twice, but the second shot would destroy the facility, possibly the entire region. Thorne studied the tactical display. The Dominion fleet remained at a distance, but their sensors were active, watching every move, waiting for Zeus to fail. They're not leaving, Victus said. They're waiting for us to break. Then we don't break. Thorne turned to Haruki. The quantum network can we use it to send more than text? Not without a relay. The bandwidth is too limited. Then we use what we have. She accessed the network, sending a single command to every human ship, every colony, every installation. Prepare for final engagement, all forces. What are you doing? Victus asked. Making them believe. Admiral Vexker watched the display with growing unease. The human ships were moving again, all 22 of them, plus every civilian vessel that could be armed, every station that could be repositioned, every weapon that could be aimed. They're committing everything, Thrax said. This is a suicide attack or a diversion. Vexker studied the gravitational readings. Zeus was still active, still charged, still capable of firing, but the containment field was flickering, moments from collapse. The humans know they can't win a direct engagement. They're trying to draw us in, make us commit our forces, then use the weapon one final time. Then we don't engage, we maintain distance and wait for the weapon to fail. Vexker nodded. All ships hold position. Do not engage the human fleet. Let them come. Thorne watched the Dominion fleet hold position. They're not moving, Victus said. They know about the containment field. They're waiting for it to fail. Then we give them something else to worry about. She turned to Haruki. Quantum network, can we send a false signal, make them think we've repaired the relays? Maybe, but Dominion sensors are sophisticated. They'll detect the deception. They don't have to believe it, they just have to hesitate. Haruki's fingers flew across his console. False signals propagated through the network, mimicking relay synchronization. For a few seconds, Dominion sensors would show the network coming back online. And in those seconds, Thorne would move. All ships engage. The human fleet accelerated, not toward the Dominion fleet, but toward the relay debris, toward the broken connections that had once linked Earth to the stars. They're going to rebuild the relay, Thrax said in the middle of combat. No, Vexker's mandibles went still. They're going to destroy it completely. If they collapse the debris field into a singularity, it would create a permanent disruption. No ship could enter the Sol system without being torn apart. Then we can't let them. Vexker opened a channel to his fleet. All ships advance, Stop the humans at any cost. The Dominion fleet moved, and Thorn smiled. Haruki confirmed Dominion fleet movement. Confirmed all ships advancing. They've taken the bait. Victa status on Zeus. Containment field at 8%. We have one. Shot. Target the lead Dominion dreadnought. Fire on my command. The fleets close the distance. Dominion. Beam weapons carve through the human formation, destroying 3 ships in the first exchange. Human railguns answered, punching through shields, tearing holes in hulls. Captain, we're taking heavy losses. The Odyssey has hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. Hold position. Captain, hold position. The Dominion fleet reached optimal range, their weapons focused on the human ships on the relay debris on the Odyssey. Now Thorn said. Zeus fired. The gravitational wave struck the Dominion flagship at point-blank range. Admiral Vexker had 1 second to register the impact, the impossible pressure, the folding of metal, the compression of atmosphere. Then his ship became a sphere of debris, and he became nothing. The remaining Dominion vessels scattered, without coordinated command, without navigation data, without the network that had sustained their empire for centuries. They panicked. Ships collided with ships, formations dissolved. The disciplined fleet that had conquered a dozen species became a collection of frightened vessels fleeing toward the edge of the system. They're running, Victus said, all of them. Thorn watched the display. The red icons representing Dominion ships grew smaller, fainter, disappearing into the darkness beyond Pluto. How many survived? Unknown, but they won't be back, not for a long time. And Zeus. Containment field is gone. The anchor is destroyed. We can't fire again. Thorn nodded. She had known this moment would come, had known that victory would feel like defeat. What about Earth? Victus pulled up the casualty reports. The numbers filled the display. Millions. Dead, cities destroyed, coastlines rewritten. We're looking at a decade of recovery. Maybe longer, but we're alive. That's more than the Dominion expected. Thorn turned from the display. Through the viewport she could see Earth. Wounded, scarred, but still there, still blue, still home. Take us back, she said. 3 weeks later, Thorn stood before the Global Council. The chamber had changed. New faces filled the seats, survivors from the coastal cities, engineers from the reconstruction efforts, soldiers from the fleet. The old divisions remained, but something else had joined them. Hoping. Captain Thorn, the council chair, began. The Dominion has withdrawn from all human-occupied space. Their network remains damaged. Their empire is in disarray. We have an opportunity to rebuild the relays, to reconnect with the galaxy, to take our place among the stars, and become just another species in their network. Thorn shook her head. No. The chamber went silent. I've seen what the Dominion does to species that join their network. I've seen the processing centers, the relocation zones, the slow erasure of cultures. The relays aren't bridges. They're chains. Then what do you propose? Thorn walked to the center of the chamber. She looked at the faces around her, tired, hopeful, frightened, determined, human faces, all of them. We lived without stars once, before the relays, before the Dominion, before any of this. We looked up at the darkness and wondered what was out there, and When we couldn't reach the stars, we built ships that could. She paused. The Dominion thought severing us from the network would kill us. Instead, it reminded us who we are. We're not a species that waits for connections. We're a species that makes them. So you're suggesting isolation. I'm suggesting independence. Thorn activated a holographic display. A map of human space appeared. Earth, Mars, the colonies, the belt, all the points of light that had survived the severing. We don't need the Dominion's network. We have our own now. Quantum entanglement. Point to point, untouchable and unstoppable. We can build ships that don't rely on relays. We can explore without asking permission. We can grow without waiting for approval. And the Dominion. Thorn looked at the display, at the darkness beyond human space, at the species still trapped in the network, still waiting for someone to show them another way. The Dominion will rebuild. They'll adapt, they'll come back, but next time, they won't find a wounded planet begging for mercy. They'll find a species that learned to live without them. She turned to face the council. We severed Earth from the stars. Dominion did that to us, but now we have a choice. We can rebuild the chains and hope they never pull, or we can burn the chains and build something new. The council chair leaned forward, and if we choose wrong, Thorn almost smiled. We're human. We've been choosing wrong for thousands of years, and we're still here. The vote took 3 hours. When it ended, the decision was unanimous. No relays, no network, no Dominion. Humanity would walk its own path. Epilogue. Captain Eris Thorn stood on the Odyssey, watching the stars. Behind her, Earth rotated slowly, its continents marked by new scars, its oceans still recovering from the tsunamis, but the cities were rebuilding, the farms were producing. The children were learning new skills. Not rail guns this time, but engineering, medicine, exploration. We're receiving a transmission, Victus said, joining her at the viewport, from a species called the Veth. They're located in a sector of the Dominion, abandoned after the network collapse. What do they want? They want to know if we're friendly. Thorn considered the question. Friendly, such a simple word for such a complicated species. Tell them we're curious, she said. Tell them we're cautious. Tell them we're human. Victus nodded. And if they ask about our weapons? Thorn looked at the stars, at the darkness between them, at the infinite possibilities stretching out in every direction. Tell them the truth. Tell them we have the most dangerous weapon in the galaxy. What's that? She turned to face him, and for the first time in months she smiled. Hope.